enormous office at Daytona Beach Regional Airport. But that equipment, the minicam, all of the important equipment that enables us to come into your homes wouldn't be worth anything if it weren't for the people who make it operate. People like Emmett and Olive, people like David who can take what he sees on the radar screen and interpret it for us. And that's what television is also. It's a business of people. People who are communicating with other people, folks at home like you. And for the next few minutes, I want to talk to some of the people who have been a part of WESH for its entire 20 years of history. The people who have helped to make us what we are today and who are continuing to do so. We have a couple of them in our studio, and I think we can show a slide right now that was familiar to viewers some 20-odd years ago. It was a news slide that introduced our then news director and general maintenance man and salesman and a few other things, Bill Hall. Bill, I'm going to put on my jacket because I've moved now into the interview set and we're going to get formal. But how did you get started in this whole business?
In broadcasting, John?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a long time ago when I was still in high school.
And you started off in radio?
Radio, and then came into TV in 1956.
Which was the way a lot of people came into the TV business originally, wasn't it?
For most everybody early
one part of broadcasting into another.
Yes.
What kind of a transition was it? What did you have to
Very interesting.
What did you have to relearn or learn anew?
Well, we didn't have to know too much, John, because nobody knew too much about television 20 years ago in Central Florida. In my case, and maybe in the case of others, we visited friends who were in television in other states and spent 2 or 3, 4 or 5 days just observing, and then came back here and put part of what we learned and our experience in radio to use.
Now, in those days, most everybody did nearly everything, didn't they?
Yes.
What were some of the jobs you had in the early days of WESH?
Well, let's see, we ran camera, technical director, wrote commercial copy, we'd go out and see accounts, feed the slide machine, the film machine, get the news together, do a 10-minute newscast twice a day, about 10 or 12 different jobs.
I think you've told me that back in the early days of WESH there were maybe 18, 20 people involved, as opposed to 100 and some now, 120 or so now, that it takes to convey information and to bring programming out. Today, you're spending your time selling commercials,
yes.
Representing the station to its advertisers in this area. What's happened in the kinds of commercials? There are those of us who look in, I guess, who think that there are more of them. But what kind of changes have gone on in that area in these 20 years?
Well, 20 years ago, most of the commercials, John, were live. We'd come into the studio and rehearse a commercial 10 or 15 minutes before we went on the air, and then just hope it went as perfectly as we could possibly do it live. And whatever mistakes we made were there for everybody to see.
Were there many mistakes?
Yes, I guess so. Not too many.
Can you remember any in particular?
Not at the moment, no.
And from that now we have progressed to the point
wait,
where...
I do remember one.
All right.
We had a cameraman who had just recently returned from his honeymoon. We were doing a commercial for a lumber company, and this cameraman's job was also to turn the teleprompter so that we could read the commercial as the words appeared. And I think he was kind of daydreaming and didn't move the teleprompter fast enough, and I had read all the words on the teleprompter and come to the last one and was just about panic-struck. And in my pause, he woke up and then started moving that teleprompter, and I got back to the job again.
Kind of a terrible moment.
It was.
What about changes in commercials? What's the most distinctive change that's taken place? There's almost no commercial now is done live, or very few at least.
No. At that time, it was either a live announcer with a product or announcer reading something over a slide. But today, with our minicams, with our videotapes, we can go out in the field with sound on film. We can mix slides, artwork, videotape, and come up with something very fine and professional, just entirely different from what it was.
Just as the technical end of it and as the human end of it, the presentation end of it, then the commercial end of it is becoming more sophisticated as we go along.
Oh, yes, and I think the videotape is the greatest development that's changed television for the benefit of the viewer, the advertiser, and for those of us here in the studio.
You know, Bill Hall, to listen to you as you've talked and to think back over the many different things that you've done in television, I just can't understand why up to just a minute or two ago before we started this segment of the program, you were worrying that that we weren't going to be able to have anything to talk about, or that you were going to have trouble without notes or something like that. It's been an interesting segment. We have, in another set here in the same studio, another man who, just as you did back in those early days, did a little bit of everything. A man who's been in love with broadcasting, I guess, nearly all of his life. He started off as the station manager of WESH when it began 20 years ago, and he is the station manager today. And as an example of the way in which he was infatuated with broadcasting, I should point out that not only is he known as Walter Strauss, station manager of WESH television, but as a man who's just recently discovered CB radio, he's also known up and down the highways as Bingo Strauss. And I don't dare, since I work for him, introduce him as Bingo, but Walter, what about the changes that you've seen over the years in not only Citizens Band radio, but television?
John, as far as the Citizens Band radio is concerned, I listen more than I do talking because it's very interesting. And as a matter of fact, it does keep you awake. It makes driving very interesting. But in the area of broadcasting, of course, you remember the carbon-type microphones. And we've come a long way as far as the innovation and sophistication of our equipment is concerned. Just on the mic principle alone, from the old carbon type where you didn't know if you were going to get out or not, you may have to snap the carbon a bit, to the mic which you have and the mic which I have on.
And there's a good contrast. I'm holding a hand microphone that I guess you can see that is of a relatively modern type. And Walter, you're wearing one of the much newer Sony-type microphones. If we can get a close shot of your tie, I'm going to put this mic up next to it. I presume we can get a shot. And there is my microphone, which extends more than the picture. And here, clipped on his tie, is the microphone that's bringing you Walter's voice with every bit as much clarity, I hope at least, as this one. You brought with you a scrapbook that your wife has kept over the years. I don't think you've kept it, have you?
No, I haven't.
This is Evelyn's doing. And in it are some pictures of the early days of WESH, the studio in Holly Hill as it was first put up, and it's been expanded 2 or 3 times since then, the first tower going up. The equipment that y'all put in as those pictures were made, does it differ a lot from the equipment we've got today?
Today we have, since that particular time, going into the transistor. And from the tube-operated type transmitter and associated equipment, we've going into the transistors, which have made for compactness and equally as good efficiency. It has cut down on heat radiation, which is very good as far as air conditioning is concerned. Also keeps the room much cooler, and that is the transmitting room or the control room, whichever the case may be. So the transistor here has been a great innovation as far as the broadcast industry is concerned.
The folks at home who watch us on sets that are now solid state and the works in the drawer and all that, on this end of the tube, too, we've gone to that kind of thing.
That is correct, yes.
Videotape, Bill Hall was saying that it was a major change as far as the advertiser is concerned. It's been that way for overall operations of the station, hasn't it?
Well, many of your syndicated programs, those that we see, such as To Tell the Truth and the other type programs, Price is Right and so forth, which we carry in the evening on a syndicated basis, are all on videotape. So it's been a changeover from film to tape.
Walter, you talk about the syndicated type program, and we know that there are a good many of those around. I think most of us have heard about network programs that then in repeats go into syndication and that kind of thing. What about the involvement of the network with the local station? Now, since very early on in its existence, WESH has been an affiliate of the National Broadcasting Company. What does that mean to the local station?
Well, to the local station and to the local viewer, it means the high-quality program service provided by the network, which the network itself is able to go out and contract for programs, and these programs then are made available to